Weekend Wonderland, and we have our very special guest today, Mark Devlin. Thank you for joining us. Mark is here to do what he does best at the moment, or one of the things that he's helping so much with, and that is speaking the musical truth that needs to be spoken. Very few DJs are doing it, and honestly, I genuinely mean this, Mark. Thank you for being one of the only people that has been sticking his neck out for a long time. And because for people like me, without that, we feel like there was no one. You know, on that basis of there's so many DJs, I have a world of DJs and a lifetime of looking after DJs. And I've had lots of experiences with all kinds of DJs from the top down. Yep. And all of my kind of friends, as we can see, are DJs, as is in the building. My family is DJs, my friends are DJs, and yeah, it's been very difficult because I have looked after many DJs, and to be quite frankly, many have been taken.
By the dark side?
By the dark side of different things. It's the dream that's dangled, and they are obviously, as every DJ is here, or had been, was looking for those big stages, the big audience, the dream that has been tantalised in front of us for so long. And as we know, that dream isn't everything it was cracked up to be. In fact,
so it turns out, yeah.
Is it possibly a nightmare? And so with that, I lead on to you, Mark. Thank you for joining us. And yeah, I would like to save every DJ that has ever worked with me and has gone to the dark side. I would also like to stop the obscene ego, greed, and what it has done to many people that I loved and cared about as they've gone through the industry. And if this can help us reach out to many of them, because I've been silenced in the last couple of years, and that's not been easy, because I care about all of the DJs that I've ever looked after. Obviously different relationships with different ones, but I have this sea of thousands of DJs, some of them, you know, hundreds I've represented on my actual roster, but thousands have come through my radio station in the last 12 years, the 3 radio stations. And yeah, it's having faith and keeping up with the fire and going, whatever's happened in the past, you can come back from that. You can come back from that ego greed side of it. You can wake up, and we can all come together with peace, love, unity and respect and what we were supposed to do, and truth and musical truth, and make a better future, and maybe we can all find the promised land. Go for it, Mark. Thank you. I'm good at talking, obviously, so you take over. You tell me your musical truth, and yeah, thank you for joining us.
All right, well, thanks for having me. And it's been a big source of disappointment for me personally how few DJs have spoken out about things that need speaking out about, particularly in the last...
Oh, God.
Easy.
Oh. Sorry, I just tried to lift it up then. And
See, I'm used to holding mics.
Yeah.
I always have a mic in my hand. There you go. All right.
Let's make sure we can get ahead.
So, yeah, it's been a source of disappointment for me personally how few DJs have spoken out, particularly in the last 4.5 years, when we've needed every voice from every field more than ever.
It broke my heart. It actually did.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it was happening. When
the response has been pathetic, let's be honest, from the DJ world, but it's been that way from every music field. So where were the punk rockers? Where were the rebels, the anarchists? Where were the old ravers from back in the day?
We were supposed to be anti-establishment, weren't we?
Well, yeah. There were so many people who were out protesting about the criminal justice bill and licensing laws in clubs and things like this back in the day.
That's where we all start, where the ravers started.
Right. But in 2020 and 2021, where were they?
Exactly.
You know, in the queue in Lidl and Aldi with a face nappy on.
Yep.
and complying with everything.
And promoting the vaccine.
Yeah.
Exactly. In many cases, actively promoting it. We
And getting paid to do so.
we can name names, you know, there's some obvious names.
We can.
So they were paid off clearly to do this.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting, frankly.
is.
But the
Fatboy Slim.
there you go. Yeah.
We've got
Heads in shame.
we've got some heckling from Waxworks, but yeah, you know,
Just down the road.
it is. We are in Brighton, and Waxworks grew up looking up to Norman Cook
And Carl. You know,
and Carl, as many have.
I'm actually writing my next book at the moment, and I was writing a chapter this morning about Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim,
Yeah.
just tapping away on my laptop.
Yeah.
So I've got some stuff on him coming out in the next book.
You put out the Substack about Carl Cox.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff I did know, lots of stuff I didn't know. And, yeah,
Well,
it's
Norman
really impressive.
Cook attended Reigate Grammar School
That's right,
With Keir.
with Sir Keir Starmer.
They did violin
They learned
lessons
violin
together.
together.
The fiddle shows.
You couldn't make it up, and you don't have to.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's very synchronistic that we are here. And you know, I've read your last two on the Gatekeepers,
Yeah.
and
Well,
yeah,
there's more to come.
And yeah, I can't wait.
More Gatekeeper chapters.
So, yeah, so everybody listening, do go and subscribe to Mark's Substack.
Yeah, I've started previewing the material on Substack, which will be coming out in the next book.
Yeah.
But really, the DJ game has been no different to all the other music fields. And it's evidence that this genre is just as owned and controlled as rock music, punk and new wave,
Yeah.
you know, any other field of music you might care to name. It's got controllers, it's got handlers, it's got overseers, it's got those whose job it is to ensure that only chosen ones get to the very top of the profession.
And to be a chosen one, you've got to play their game.
Well, yeah, there's two ways in, really. There's two main ways. One is if you're born into the right bloodline family, because it's all about ancestry and genealogy and, you know, what family you just happen to be born into. And then there are other ways into the industry, which is demonstrating just how much you want the fame and the fortune,
Yeah.
and how far you're prepared to degrade your morals and sell your soul for it. Literally as well as metaphorically, probably.
Yeah, in every way. And, you know, when you say selling your soul, you know, people think, oh, you know, just made a sellout track. It's a lot more than that, isn't it, Mark?
It is more than that. There's a very literal way in which people do sell their souls, because unfortunately the music industry, like every other walk of life, is ultimately controlled by dark occultists.
The
Satanists.
gatekeepers,
Yeah.
the
This is
people with all the
uncomfortable-
money, the record companies.
Exactly. It's uncomfortable information for people to come to terms with, but it doesn't stop it from being true. And there's so much evidence to prove this to be the case.
Yeah.
So if you want success in any field in organised society, whether it's banking, finance, politics, mainstream media, big business, yeah,
You've got to join their club.
music, and let's throw the DJing profession into that, because it's no different.
Exactly.
Then you've got to either demonstrate just how much you want it and what you're prepared to do, or come from the right family.
Yeah.
Those are the two ways in.
And it's across the entertainment industry, isn't it, basically? It's,
Yeah.
you know, from music to TV to
Yeah.
fashion to across that.
Well, this is what I was finding right in these books. I'll just show the
Do you
first
show
one
them?
here. So
Here's the camera.
there we go. So I've written 3 of these. This is volume 1, which came out in 2016. And I've found myself writing about every genre within music. I've got chapters in there on heavy metal, heavy rock. I didn't know much about
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know much about those fields, but I had to educate myself as to how those big players got to where they are. And it's the same thing with classical, opera,
Oh, is
even,
it? Is
country
it
and
really?
western,
Wow.
every
Wow.
form of music.
Wow.
Country and western is deeply satanic.
Is it?
People are surprised about this, but so much of the mind control.
Dolly Parton sitting at the top.
Dolly Parton, definitely. Dolly Parton is
Working
like
9 to 5.
a beta sex kitten.
Yeah.
That's a division of MK Ultra
Wow.
mind control programming,
Wow.
and the country and western genre is absolutely rife with that.
Yeah.
And people think of it as wholesome and Christian and all American and family friendly, but it's anything but.
It's anything but. Yeah, it's not just the DJs. It's just that's where we came from. You know, that was our career and where we know so much. You
That's
know,
what we know about.
on the side of the symbolism, I've been unpacking that and looking into how you've been calling that out. Symbolism has always been something that I read the signs, the symbols, I can see through the lines, that kind of psychic intuition I've always been quite in touch with, and more that I've got comfortable with that, the more I'm seeing this satanic symbolism, the way that they'll twist a nice story and make it dark.
Yeah.
You know, all of this, you know...
The more you learn to see it, the more you see it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't unsee it, can you?
That's right.
Yeah, no, this is
So
it.
the signs and the symbols are the calling cards of the controllers of these industries. And so they get their assets to do it.
Yeah.
And there are some familiar ones, you know, hand signals that they do. I'm not going to do them on camera.
No, because
otherwise
somebody will...
will freeze frame it and say, I told you he was a shill.
Yeah.
He's a Freemason.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can research these things. And it's their way of announcing who they own, whose asses they've got. So they get them to do it in photo shoots and in promo shots and videos and things like this.
I mean,
That's how you can know who's properly owned.
This is one with, is it Cardi B's just done a picture in front of a paedophile sign?
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
nice.
Yeah, blatant. And is it Kendrick Lamar?
Kendrick Lamar's just called out Drake. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Kendrick Lamar's been...
Brutal way.
He's been on that for a while.
Yeah.
But what he's done in that last track is like literally slammed it.
He slam dunked
There's
it.
no reply to that. The album cover put in the Predator.
Yeah,
tags
talking
on the
about-
page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cherry on the cake.
Makes me wonder how that's going to pan out, because you've got all these allegations against P. Diddy right now. He's being called the Jeffrey Epstein of hip-hop.
Yeah.
And these are very serious allegations coming from multiple directions. Then you've got Drake, who's being accused of similar activities by Kendrick Lamar and others. And I wonder how they're going to get away with this. They probably will, unfortunately. But if they do, it will tell us everything we need to know about their true protected status.
Yeah.
And there are others
Exactly.
we could mention.
And then we have the kind of, you know, daddy at the top at Universal, Lucian, with the name, Lucian Grange.
Right.
You know, he's in the P. Diddy. Have you read the P. Diddy court papers?
I've seen some of them.
Some of it, yeah. So he's in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Against him, it's not being advertised over here.
Yeah.
Here in the States, you can hear it, see it in the news over there, but not here on the mainstream anyway.
Yeah. So, and you know, I'm only reporting on what's in those. You know, it's not that it's coming from me. This is in the court papers for P. Diddy,
Absolutely,
and you know, it was a prostitute, isn't it, that's filed those papers,
Yeah.
and this is happening a lot. You know, these women get to a point that they will tell the truth, but for whatever reasons as well. And in the UK, there's been many allegations from women that some may be calling prostitutes or whatever.
A lot of them groomed when they were
Groomed when they were younger, yeah, totally. And with the UK kind of middle England curtain, it's the worst place for, no, she's just a whore, she's just a gold digger, she's just that. And these things have been discredited. And I know that... Well, I like to see the fact that it doesn't matter what she's done and what her career has been, and because who knows how she got there and why that was, but that they're still getting that, being able to pull that credibility through, because it doesn't matter. Like, you know, it doesn't matter. I was an ex-page 3 model, and I've never done anything like that. But that is the first thing that everybody uses to discredit you. You're just a whore, you're just a gold digger, you're just after a bit of fame, you're just after a bit of promo. And to see that there are cases that I now know, and P. Diddy's one isn't the only one, I know of a few that are very, very close to home in the UK.
Yeah.
And us women being able to come together and it doesn't matter whether you're a page 3 girl, whether you're a prostitute, whether you're a singer, whether you're a dancer, whether you're whatever you were, they are still listening, and that truth is getting through finally, because some of these women are the strongest women out there, because it takes, you know, how much did it take to go against go against Epstein, go against Puff Daddy, go against Prince Andrew. You know, when you see 1 or 2 women that are going against these mega rich, powerful people, I personally know how hard it is, and so that being respected now,
Right.
is because that's the big thing for me on the respect side, and I do generally believe that when the guys, and that goes for across the entertainment industry and the music industry, it is still run by the guys. It has always been a man's world that I was working in for the last 25 years. As much as I've walked around many of my contemporaries in the last 3 or 4 years and tried to talk to them about this side of things and how bad it's got and what we're going to do about it, that got shut down and disrespected, and no, we're not going to talk about it. And I do believe that many of the guys here and that have come this weekend, and yourself, it's by you guys, DJs, singers, whatever you are in the industry, it's by you guys being able to lift the ladies up and let our truth be heard as to how we change all of this problem. And that's a solution that I do generally believe, because honestly, us women can't do it on our own. We need the strength, I truly believe, of the masculine to be able to go, look, we know what's gone on, we're guys, we can protect and look after the women in this industry and level them up without them being treated like whores, all of this kind of thing, because this is the mentality of where this demonic side of the really satanic side of it all comes back to, unfortunately, the sex, the drugs, the rock and roll, and all of that sexuality that goes with it. And this is where I believe it can change by guys like all of you lot and yourself,
right,
by talking the truth about what's been going on. Sorry, over to you.
What's incredible to me is how long many of these characters have been seemingly getting away with it, because we're getting revelations now about things that have been going on for decades.
Yeah.
I mean, the Prince Andrew allegations go back decades, and I remember back in the 90s as a DJ playing hip-hop and R&B stuff, hearing about P. Diddy, or Puff Daddy, as he was known back then, Sean Combs, and the stuff that he was into. And R. Kelly also.
Yeah.
R. Kelly married Aaliyah, the singer, when she was 15, and he was 30-odd. And that
married
marriage,
her at 15, I
married
didn't know
her.
that.
And then it was discovered what her true age was, and so that marriage was annulled. But that was a little glimpse way back in the 90s as to R. Kelly's preferences. And that continued. Many more stories about him came out. There were videos which surfaced. There were always these R. Kelly videos going around of him in compromising positions with young girls. And it just became like a running joke among hip-hop and R&B DJs. Oh, it's another R. Kelly video out. And he got away with it for years and years and years. And according to the allegations against him, he ran a sort of sex harem, like a mind control cult, with loads of women that were just kept as sex slaves. And eventually it caught up with him, and for whatever reason he was thrown under a bus.
Yeah.
And he went to jail for it.
Yeah.
So the allegations
finally, but it was facilitated facilitated and enabled for too long, and that's the difficult thing. That's where
Well, it's like they
we
needed
hear
someone to
all
make
of
an
these
example of.
allegations, and then we're screaming out, right, we need to do something, and it's
Well,
and
many
it's-
of us were.
Yeah.
And many of us have known about Puffy for a long time.
A long time, yeah.
And not just him, but how about Africa Bambaataa, who nobody talks about? Africa Bambaataa is considered one of the founding fathers of hip-hop culture, and he's got allegations hanging over him from, it was initially 2 men, Ronald B. Stinger Savage and Hassan Poppy Campbell, who both claimed that when they were young boys, he sexually molested them when they were in the Universal Zulu Nation. I think Ronald Savage, B. Stinger, has since withdrawn his allegation against Bambaataa, which might tell us something.
Right.
But Hassan Campbell's allegations still stand,
Right.
and it's not just them, because there are others from within the Universal Zulu Nation who have said, oh, everyone kind of knew about Bambaataa's preferences for young boys, but we just didn't say anything. It was part of the culture to just keep your mouth shut. And when I heard that, it reminded me of one thing, which is what we got in the wake of the Jimmy Savile
yeah,
allegations.
exactly that.
Loads of people at the
Everybody
BBC,
knew.
yeah, including other presenters, were all saying, oh, we all kind of knew what Jimmy was up to, but you just didn't say anything.
And it's the same with Morello.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Westwood.
If you want to succeed in the career, if you want to continue to get the salary and all the perks, you know that you just don't say anything.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been the most difficult thing. You know, when I became a ambassador for Me Too Music after the Eric Murillo revelations, I never, you know, we'd all heard many stories. But I've always been one that managed to stay away from the dark after party, i.e. if it was getting twisted, I knew it was full of that kind of guys, all of that kind of thing. I was like, no, I'm not going to that party. Yeah. I'm going over to this one.
Or just have an early night and go home.
Or go home.
You probably live longer that way.
But, you know, I've been in many a party, and that's the... That is we'd heard many stories, and whether it be Murillo, Westwood, Saville, and many others, unfortunately the list goes on. We heard many stories, but I generally didn't know how bad it was because I hadn't experienced it myself and hadn't put myself in that position, and I didn't realise how bad it was. And the 10... stories that DJ Mag and Mix Mag, I think it was DJ Mag, published after Eric Murillo. Those 10 stories really, really, really hit home, and I knew they were all telling the truth. And there was only one guy, I can't remember, Dave Lambert. I think it was the only guy that actually spoke out, whereas everybody knew what Eric Murillo was like. Yeah. Swedish House Mafia, many stories of villa parties.
And then he died suddenly afterwards.
And then he died suddenly of a ketamine overdose, apparently. But,
like you do.
And now we've got Sean from Friends, what's his name? That's just there. It's just
never
been
watched it.
What's Chandler from Friends' name?
Perry.
Matthew Perry, yeah. So
it's
all come up. Have you seen that? It's all come out that he was killed by the ketamine queen of LA, the doctors, massive overdose, and they've got...
no, I didn't hear that.
Right, so they've arrested 4 or 5 people and actually charged them with murder for Matthew Perry's
You
death.
know what's interesting about that? On his social media, just shortly before he turned up dead, he posted a picture of himself with a smiley yellow face, a smiley yellow face cushion. And I've been doing some research into the dark side of the smileys. So the smiley yellow face, which came to symbolise acid house and togetherness and the rave scene, does actually have a sinister side to it. It's connected with the so-called smiley face killings.
Yeah.
And it seems to be an emblem that's used by some very dark groups.
And this is, I do believe that Matthew was calling out the paedophile groups as well. Right. Already, and it is so this lethal injection by doctors that has been given, and it's come out. You know, it came out afterwards that it was suicide and he'd OD'd on ketamine
in his jacuzzi.
In his jacuzzi, it's now come out that and she is nicknamed as the ketamine queen of LA, has given him a full lethal overdose injection for the money, for an actual payoff, and that's what the charges are now. That is one that's been caught, and we can now go back on a list of see how many people have suddenly died.
There's a lot for
this
them to
drugs
keep the lid on.
overdose. Yeah, exactly. In the end, there's always one that's going to come out, which causes that ripple effect.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, like I was saying, obviously Murillo then dies, and then it's the one thing that, you know, everybody was talking about in the industry at the time, and I could feel the as Mike would say, squeaky bum time for many of the people that had been to those parties with Murillo. And unfortunately, they haven't stopped. And Murillo might be dead, but unfortunately, those parties are still going on.
Of course.
And this is where it leads so many young boys, often, and young girls now, but in the DJ world, young boys that are led into the life of the dark side, shall we say. You can do whatever you like, the coke, the champagne, the whores, you name it. They're led into that side, and that's it, they've got them. And as we know, it's the videos and all of these kind of things, and from there, they feel that there's no way back, because if they do, that's the end of their career, that's the end of the dream,
Yeah.
and that's it, and that's how they get them. So if this can be a lesson to anybody, please, as a woman that's looked after many guys, it honestly does break my heart, Mark, that so many of them that I had such good relationships with, you can hear it, that I had such good relationships are gone, and when I try to talk to them, the things that they say, the stuff that comes across, and Eats Everything was my last biggest DJ, and we were very close. He was my DJ at Scream 25 years ago when I was doing it with Dan Prince and Louis G. And in 2021, I think it was, just after the vaccine came out, he released a track called Vaccine. And we had a conversation that I've got, and obviously I've not ever released it, but what he was saying, how much this guy had changed from the guy that I knew from 15 years ago and that was on my roster when he broke, and all of that was just heartbreaking, the way he was talking to me, the way he was talking about the vaccine, no responsibility, and just like, I'm living, my life is great. And Dan, if you're listening, or if you do hear this, I still love you. I just don't like this kind of breakdown in... Do
you think he was instructed to make that then?
Yeah.
Right.
He's doing an album for Sony.
Not of his own personal volition, but somebody telling him to do it.
They don't, they're as you know, they're very manipulative. It's not a you will do this, it's a what about this? This is a good idea.
Well, Carl Cox did that NHS ad, didn't he? Pushing the arm spear.
Exactly. And it was just...
You can bet that he was offered a tidy sum.
Yeah.
Not that he needs the money, being a multi-millionaire.
And none of them do, and that's where the
greed... about $42 million, but apparently it's still not enough.
Exactly, and that's where the greed has taken over. Yeah, how much do they need to set?
Right.
Like, how much money do they need? How many cars?
Do you really need?
How many houses? How much do you need?
The more you have, the more you want.
Exactly. Do you really want to be playing out every night and going hell for leather and...
Till you're 70.
Exactly, exactly. And so, I don't hold grudges, and I never have. Like, I'm always open for any of my... And, they're not just my DJs, they're just friends that I've worked with and colleagues that I've worked with and DJs that I've worked with and people that I've worked with, and it has been such a breakdown, and there's been such a kind of a silencing campaign and a discrediting campaign, because just like you, I've been trying to stick my neck out a little bit, and I've not even been able to stick my neck out an inch of what you have because of this. You're out, nah, you're going to shut down, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to talk about this.
We'll get you in the next book, eh?
So
you can have half
on.
the next book to tell your stories.
I'm doing a few books, funnily enough.
Oh, right. Good idea.
It's something I've been working on for a while.
Under pseudonyms, or? So
tell me about your books, because I love books. I haven't published anything yet. But I'm going to call myself E.S. Wall, because my real name's Ellen. It's not Sacha.
Okay.
Sacha is my modelling name.
Okay.
That's it. When I started modelling in 1998, they put my name in the paper, my real name, and immediately I started getting some proper dodgy phone calls. It was in the days when people looked you up in the phone book. It was like, oh yeah, we can find you. And then I started getting some really dodgy calls. So I changed my name to Sacha because it was my favourite DJ at the time.
Right.
But I didn't want to look like I was copying him, so I changed it to Sacha with a C instead of an S. And that's how I became Sacha. But yeah, as a writer, I've got many, many, many books inside me. I believe everybody has a book inside them.
You didn't want to be called Digweed then?
Definitely not. Do you know, actually, he wasn't my favourite DJ. My favourite DJ actually at the time was Jeremy Healy. I was like, I'm not calling myself Jeremy. But how your favourite DJs change over the years. Tell me about your books, because I'm an absolute bookworm, and I love to know all about your books.
I mean, before I get onto the books, just talking about favourite DJs, mine used to be Tim Westwood.
There you go.
Yeah.
Mike's was Fatboy Slim.
Let me qualify that comment.
this is the false idols, isn't it? And that's where they've...
And we all get caught by them. So when I was coming up as a DJ, I used to enjoy dance music and house music. I always kept an eye on that, and I used to enjoy listening to it in the clubs. But I really gravitated towards hip-hop purely as a result of listening to Tim Westwood's show on Capital Radio. And I really got into the music, and I thought, oh, here's a white guy that's made it in a black music culture, so I'll try my luck at it. If he can achieve it, I can. I didn't realise that he was a lifetime actor and a gatekeeper that had been planted into the scene. But I went off down that route, the hip-hop and R&B route, and that's when I encountered all this information about Puff Daddy. And did you hear that revelation that's come out recently about the girl in the Big Popper video by Notorious B.I.G., Biggie Smalls?
I haven't heard that, no.
Not really a girl?
No, I haven't heard that. And because I've never followed the hip-hop scene, I've kind of not been in that sphere. But no, tell me.
Well, there was a video to Biggie Smalls' song Big Popper, which Puffy executive produced. Came out in about 1994.
Right.
And there's a scene in the bathroom of a club where a girl goes in with Biggie, I think. And it's just been revealed that it's not a girl. It never was a girl. It was a transgender. So even back in the mid-90s, Puffy was around all this business.
Swinging whatever way.
Revelation. And also there's a video of Biggie, who was always presented as a very heterosexual alpha male rapper. Because back in the mid-90s, hip-hop was very male-dominated, very heterosexual, no gay rappers at all, very, very taboo to come out as gay in the 90s. But there's a video of Biggie, and he's got Puffy next to him, and he's brushing his head. He's brushing his head on his arm.
Oh my
like brushing
God.
up against him.
Oh my God.
Like they're lovers.
Oh my God.
And this completely flies in the face of the image that Biggie always had. And it's amazing to me now that 30 years later, we're seeing this stuff.
And this is it, like you say, when you've given so much love, really, that's it. That's the love that you, when you're growing up with these artists, and you
don't want to see it.
Yeah, you know, it's like it's,
and a lot of people like choose not to. So all this stuff like with
like Phil Schofield, like everybody's like, oh, we held Phil Schofield. He's like a little broom cupboard boy, and
it was so brave of Philip to come out.
Yeah, exactly. And all of this, it's that you see these people growing up, you're idolising them in many ways, not, you know, depending on who you are as to how you hold them, but you're like, I love their music, I love what they do, I love what they're all about, and then suddenly...
So many hip-hop heads are just not hearing it about Bambaataa.
Really?
They don't want to hear it.
They don't want to know.
No,
yeah, they're
still
shut
getting
down.
booked to do shows.
Oh, wow.
And people are getting onto the promoters of these shows and saying, do you know what this guy has been accused of? And they're like, well, we don't care.
Well, it's been the same with Derek May and things like that.
People are still going to come out to see him, so what do we care?
Yeah, they don't care.
Tim Westwood is going out to Lagos, Nigeria, and he's playing parties out there, and he's getting packed clubs full of young black girls, and nobody seems to, A, know what he's been accused of, and let's say they're allegations at this stage.
They can't not know.
Or B, care. They just don't care.
And that's the heartbreaking bit. We have to care, and it's the audience that can make the difference. Because the promoters will keep on booking these demons while the audience wants them. And that is the only way we can actually go out to the audience and go, understand they're harvesting your energy, they're raping you of your money, they're raping you of everything, they're playing bad frequency music. And if we can really, and I know it's a big ask, and there will always be a huge audience out there of different types of people, but if we can really build up that understanding, I do believe, Mark, that it is happening with the Great Awakening, the Great Unravelling, with all of this happening, that slowly but surely there are, like the rave crew that are here last night, that we're kind of introducing them to this dark side so that they know when they're going out that we can change their way of thinking. Go, do you know what? We don't want that shit music. We don't want that demon. We don't want to spend 150 quid on that ticket. And that's when it stops.
So that's a good segue into these books, actually.
Was it brilliant? Excellent.
So I've done a 3-part series, it's a trilogy of books under the title Musical Truth. First one came out 2016, and then I did Volume 2 early 2018.
Amazing.
Volume 3 came out during the COVID era, 2021. And this was just my way of presenting all the information that I'd researched up to that point. So I kind of woke up around 2010, that sort of time, and started throwing myself furiously into research. And I really wanted to know how my new realizations about how this world really operates and which forces really run it plays out in the music business.
Yeah.
So I made that my specialist area of research. That was my niche area. And I spent 5 years researching all that stuff. And that led to the publication of that first book. I had to self-publish it because no conventional publisher would go near it.
No, that's it. I think...
And I'm now unemployable. So there's no company in the
I know
land,
that feeling.
There's no company that would ever employ me now. Self-employment for the rest of my days.
Yeah.
But these books were my way of presenting all that information.
Mark,
it goes cross-genre. So I do, in Musical Truth Volume 2, I talk about dance music, acid house and rave culture, and some of my suspicions surrounding the early days of that and how it all got started. And I go into hip-hop and heavy metal and all kinds of stuff.
Brilliant.
And then the third book speaks about the COVID era and how musicians and famous people generally were used to push the official narrative.
Yeah, or stay silent.
Yeah. One of those two options, with very few exceptions.
Very few.
So, shout to Danny Rampling.
Yes.
Shout to Slipmat.
Yeah, Lange.
Shout to Norris the Boss Windross.
Yeah.
Gary Cobain, Future Sound of London. Baby D.
Baby D, yeah.
Might have been a few I've missed there, but
yeah.
they're the ones that spring to mind.
Yeah, and I was exactly the same. These... Having a DJs with that big influence and with that audience already is so important because it's so much easier for them.
Can you imagine, Sacha, somebody like, for example, Pete Tong? I know it would never happen.
Never in a month of Sundays.
Just use your imagination for a moment and consider if Pete Tong looked at what was going on in the world and said, I'm not having this. Yeah. I'm going to use my platform to tell everyone what's really happening, who really runs these industries, what this world is all about. I know he wouldn't last very long. He'd be sacrificing himself, but I'm just asking people to imagine the impact.
It could be the only way he's getting to heaven.
Death by jacuzzi, probably. But just
would.
Imagine the impact.
Yeah, any of them. And I reached out to many.
That would be a game changer.
I reached out to many. I mean, I understand how hard it is.
But we know why they don't speak out.
But, look at Danny. Danny Rampling's spoken out, and it's actually made him very employable. He's got loads of gigs again, a lot more than he did have beforehand.
Yeah, he's been embraced by a whole new community. So, yes, it's tough. Yes, you've got to have courage. But being on the right side of Musical Truth is very good for your mental health. It's very good for your soul. And having that right, good community, because we're social creatures. That's why we all got into this kind of dance music and going out and coming together for the music, and one of the reasons. And it's lovely on the light side, isn't it? Got nowhere else to go, have we?
This is the only place I'm going. It's not that I haven't danced around the dark side a few times, but honestly,
this is all we can do now. This is beyond the point of no return.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. And honestly, Mark, I just want to thank you once again for coming to join us today.
No worries.
For us being able to have a little chat. I hope we can do a lot more chatting.
Sure. Shame about the garden party.
I know. Shame about the chemtrails and the seeding and the fact that we've been washed out all summer, haven't we, this summer?
Who remembers summer?
Summer? What's that? We're in England, for fuck's sake.
Big shout out to Summer back in the day.
Big shout out to Summer. Is there anything you would like? What's the other book, The Gift and the Cursed?
Yeah, so I've also written a couple of novels, which I call truth fiction. So The Gift and the Curse, and then the follow-up, The Cause and the Cure. And these are both set in Oxford, which is where I grew up. And the first one is set in the early 90s, so it's 1990 going into 1991. And then the second one is 10 years later, same characters in 2001 at the time of 9/11. And I realised that if you dress certain books up as fiction, there's a whole load of stuff that you can say
Yep.
and get away with,
Yep.
which you can't if you have to quantify it with citations or whatever.
And it's easier for
So-
them to accept it.
So the reason I call it truth fiction is because they're full of truth bombs,
Yeah.
and it's symbolic and it's allegorical. You can have a lot of fun decoding the hidden elements of the story.
That sounds right
So I
up my
really
street.
enjoy writing fiction because it's a
I'm going to buy them for
very,
you.
very
mate.
cathartic and it's a very good creative process.
It's very lethargic, isn't it? Writing that whole
It is.
journaling side of it,
I'm doing the next
unpacking it
book
and
at the
putting it
moment.
onto paper.
I alternate between fiction and non-fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So the one I'm writing right now is non-fiction. It's another book about the music industry. So I wrote a chapter this morning about a certain DJ who lives a bit down the coast.
It's got lots of smiley faces on his.
Lots of aliases.
He's got a smiley face on his roof.
Has he?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that'll be going in the book.
There you go. Yeah. You should have a little chat
Called
with
himself
Mark.
Pizza Man.
I know. Yeah. Girls and Boys, wasn't it? Girls and Boys edit with Blur.
Yeah.
Piano Man, Blurred.
Yeah.
And Blur's my favourite band. Well, one of my favourite bands. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he was the alias king. Yeah, many different names.
Many aliases, yeah.
Many aliases.
So he's in
many
the new
names.
book, and that'll be coming out next spring. I want to get that out as soon as possible.
Look forward
So
to
the other
that.
books are on Amazon if anyone's interested, or you can get copies from me direct.
And where else can we find you?
Where else?
Yeah, tell the listeners. So
All over the bloody
Substack.
place.
All your
online,
main
yeah.
places. Substack.
So I'm on YouTube, 4th YouTube channel, Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Spreaker, Substack, Patreon, Facebook, X, TikTok. That's
Everywhere,
about it.
pretty much.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Mixcloud.
Just search Mark Devlin.
Yeah. And my main website is djmarkdevlin.com.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Mark.
No probs.
All right. Thank you very much.